wonderful time.
Okay.
I've had my bumps in the road. I didn't like it when I got dropped off in Kuwait, at the age of 40-something. But I wound up being in Iraq fighting a real war.
You saw combat.
Actually really killing people who were trying to kill me.
Okay.
So I actually had the whole gamut of the real situation.
Okay, all right.
But right now, the military is taking care of me, paying me. If I sneeze, they got to give me a tissue.
Okay.
And I demand it.
You deserve it.
So I'm getting 100% disability. I don't pay for medical insurance whatsoever.
Wonderful.
Nothing.
Okay, now.
I went to this school for free.
Okay.
And I went to Bronx Community College for free. So I'm going to squeeze the life out of them.
Okay.
And so be it the way it is. Now, I'm getting my benefits. I'm doing everything I can towards the military, but
you deserve
believe me, I didn't stay in there 20 years for nothing.
That's okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Mr. Haskins, you're joining us a little late, but we had just went around and identified which branch of service we served in and what were your duties in that time, and how long did you serve?
Right. Well, I served 3 years in the U.S. Army. I was in the mid-'70s, right at the fall of Vietnam, actually. And when I went in, the volunteer army was kind of just starting. The draft was almost over, but I wasn't really sure how that was gonna fall down to me. And I looked and I saw that my draft number was a particular way, and I said, well, you know what, this doesn't look too good. And I was seeing the images coming across the television screen. I had been seeing that for several years as a young kid, and then growing up, I said, wait, whoa, this is not something that I want to be participating in, not knowing anything about what it meant to go into the Army, what serving, what potentially being in a war. Didn't know any of that, but I knew I didn't want to be a part of what I saw coming across my screen. So I joined the Army. I joined the Army, and I went to school. It's interesting because I originally wanted to go to school for television and radio production. That was my goal, because I knew at 17 years old before that this is what I wanted to do, to be in radio. But it didn't turn out that way for me. There's a battery of examinations that we have to go through. And I needed to score, I remember this very well, I needed to score a 94 for that particular a school that I wanted. It's a good school in Fort Benjamin Harris, Indiana. I scored a 92. So I wasn't allowed to go to that school. And they gave me the options of, you could be a cook, you could be infantry, or you could be military police. Those were my choices. I said, well,
it's funny you should say that, though, because I was all of those.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely. I wound up being all of those.
Is that right?
Now I'm a radio host.
Okay, all right.
Well, I said I wasn't going to do that. So I settled with military police.
Okay.
Yeah, I did military
all right.
police, too.
Mr. Albrighton, I'm sorry. You were in the Navy for 7 years. I think you and I had a conversation a while ago. You said you came back home, and then you went back to Spain.
Right.
What happened?
Right,
what happened with that?
Well, my situation is similar. I did join. I took the test. I knew I wanted to be a photographer as soon as I went in. They told me I was 2 points short, so I was sent to an aircraft carrier. And naturally, they tell you can do on-the-job training in every area. So I asked them to work in the lab, and my request was denied like 4 times. And I said, if you promise me one thing, I held them accountable. I said, if you can't let me work in the lab for 2 weeks like I was promised, then you got to send me back home. So they saw how emotional I was about becoming a photographer, and they asked me to submit it again. And I ended up going to photo school, and they sent me to Florida. I finished number 2 in my class, and then after that, I was sent everywhere as an aerial photographer.
Wow.
As far as the question that you asked, I think I was sent out there in '83, right after the bombing of Beirut. I got to the ship, to the aircraft carrier, the Eisenhower, and my tours were great. I had a great time from the time to the ship to all of my training. But when it came time to get out, I did have an injury in my foot, and I wanted to be a combat camera because I was a aerial intel photographer. And I wanted to go to the next level, but since I had injured my foot, I wasn't allowed to get that job. So then I decided to come back home. But while I was living in Spain, I had a great life, you know, from the time I lived in Japan for about a year, lived in Hawaii for 2 years, and spent 3 years in Spain. And while I was in Spain, I was very into language, which is what I study now. And everywhere I went, I was always interested in languages. In Japan, my boss, her and her husband, the lieutenant, they were there for 11 years, so they started to teach us Japanese. And then they said, well, where do you want to go? You know, and I said, well, send me to Europe, and I went to Spain. But I think my adjustment as far as coming out, I don't think there was a great exiting counseling.
Okay, exiting counseling.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like
so
that.
that's what I would probably call it. And you know, when it's time to get out, you know, you've done your job,
That's it.
and it's like, well, see you later,
Right.
almost. But what I know now is you have to have yourself together. I have a nephew who just retired after 20 years, and I have a niece who also is about to retire in 1 or 2 years, and she'll probably do 22 years. But they explained to me how it has changed a little bit. So as you prepare to get out, there is more counseling.
Yes.
As far as when you come back to the States, I thought I did the proper steps. You know, I did stay in Spain for a while. I was not ready to come back to the United States. I was not ready to come back. I wasn't particularly happy with the Bush era and the political system. So I decided to stay in Spain for a while and travel, and you know, I worked as a DJ also, so I was able to support myself. But I was not ready to come back. But when I did come back, what I did find out is that even though you search and you look for help, all of the help wasn't there. I found a door, 1 or 2 doors that were closed in my face, and I ended up reaching out. I met another veteran whose name is Raymond Epps. I met him while I was working in PC Richards, and he directed me towards a gentleman by the name of Barry Campbell. And
Yes, Barry Campbell, yes.
Barry Campbell, I sat down and told him my story. You know, they told me that I didn't qualify for wartime veteran status, and he showed me all the paperwork that I needed to do. And then he directed me to the vocational rehabilitation, and that's how I ended up. I'm here at City College studying, and the military did stand up to their word at the end.
Wonderful,
you know?
wonderful. If you have been listening to our President Obama, he always takes a moment to really thank the veterans. If you notice that, he has a particular interest in thanking you guys, and I do too, because no matter how we feel and talk about our experiences, you are still in the military, and you had to take orders, okay, which could have put you in harm's way. So we really appreciate that. But what are the pros and cons? This is open. What are the pros and cons of of serving in the military? When you were there, what was really great, and what at the same time what was not so great?
For me, I think the discipline was great. The mental training, the discipline is probably the most important. You do have the opportunity to go to study while you're serving, which I did also. The plus, definitely traveling and getting to know other cultures, and I try, even though I'm not as old as some of these gentlemen, but I do.
For yourself.
I'm
the youngest one here. I know I am.
I'm only 51, but
I'm older than you. Okay.
Well, I'm older than you. I'll take that back.
But I do when I do speak to other young brothers, you know, I tell them my experience. The best thing for me is to experience the world outside of the United States, outside of, if I can use your neighborhood, okay? And once you're exposed to other cultures, you have a different perspective on life and on the United States at the same time, okay? So you can, your mind is open and expanded. And I will say, as I traveled, Other countries, they did treat me very, very well. I mean, and people understood our history also, which I was very surprised in Spain, that they did understand the African American struggle. So, and I had people approach me and say, we know, and they explained to me about our history, which was very, very good for me. You know? So like
Anybody else? How did being abroad affect your?
Well, like Mr. Albright said, the traveling, the cultures, the camaraderie, major point in my life. The camaraderie, all the brothers and sisters that I've met all over the world, we still stay in touch. We have that camaraderie. We were there together through it all. There was slight racism, absolutely, in the military. Yeah, there was racism, but
Only slight.
What is slight?
listen,
What
there was racism. There was racism. I don't want to get into it that crazy. There was racism. Okay, I believe that I had to endure it, but I wasn't privy to actually really enduring it because I was an older gentleman.
Okay.
I came in when I was 30.
Okay.
I was already psychologically fit. What could they do to me? Right? They would call me stuff like, "Old man, what are you doing in the Army at this age?" When I went to train in different cities like, Missouri and Alabama, they would say stuff like that. I ain't paying them no mind. But then I got rank. I got rank on my shoulders. So I ain't going to say this, but I got rank on my shoulders, so it was different. But the plus side, like I said, the plus side is that there are doors. You do meet people, and he was talking about Barry, Campbell, major influence in my life as well. So I do what I got to do. But my sons will never join the Army.
Okay.
They will never. They will say, "Dad,
Why is that?
that is not for me. That is for you." Because our belief system. My belief system is not for everybody. Everybody can't be an American soldier.
Okay.
Everybody can't be a police officer. Everybody can't be a fireman. Certain careers are for certain people. Everybody can't do the things that everybody else do. It's not for everybody. I'm doing radio now, and of course I love it because I'm a people person. I loved it, and I've been a people person all throughout the military. That's why I when I was in Iraq, people would look for me because I had a personality about me, and I would sell merchandise when I was in Iraq. And people would look for me from different cities in Iraq, and they would say, "Where's that Sergeant Mitchell at? Let's find Sergeant Mitchell." So, yeah, different experiences, though. Right?
When we talk about any form of racism, even as a psychotherapist, once we encounter it,
Yes.
we the mind immediately has to engage what is called psychological defense mechanisms. Okay, in other words, we have to do something with our heads in order to endure and survive. Okay, sometimes we have to rationalize it. Well, it's not as bad as this over there, or sometimes we block it out. Okay, that's called denial. Okay, someone will say, "Did you see what he just said?" You may say, "I didn't see anything." Okay, that's the mind's way of surviving. Okay, but and I appreciate that because we do know it exists.
Yes.
Okay, and each one of us has to find ways in which to overcome, this terrible thing that we have to deal with in this society. Let me just say this: as we have been talking about, maybe the question could be how we joined the military. I noticed that we joined because we happened to be walking by 42nd Street. We joined because I was 30. We joined for all these different reasons, okay? But remember the patriotic, the patriotic ideal, over there, and I'm going to go fight for my country, and there are, I'm quite sure
I never really did it for that.
No,
No,
I didn't either.
I just.
But what's the difference, though?
Go ahead, Michael.
Some Americans do it for that. I mean, their fathers were generals, and they fought during the world, and they put on a very proud front to say, "I'm going to join to fight for my country."
For me, it was a sense of pride. It was a sense of pride. Once I walked past the office, and then you do get that patriotic feeling.
Okay.
But
Right.
I mean, as you get older, you accept the reality of what goes on in the United States. So when I got back, I didn't get the appreciation of what you do.
Exactly.
When that's probably the most disappointing thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
You don't-
well,
Yeah.
for me, I was conflicted. The services. For me, when I look at the services is the indoctrination. People talked about the discipline. There came a point where I felt felt good to be a part of. But there was before I went into the service. There had been Emmett Till. My parents were Garveyite,
Right.
so there was I still had some.
Yeah.
So I'm still paying attention because
Right.
I understand how this whole society operates. And like I said, when I saw the favoritism towards other people, I quit. I was still in there, but I mean, I was resistant
Right.
to that whole process. I remember I got court-martialed. I was on guard duty, and there was a favoritism, and the sergeant came in and asked me to do something, and other people had been there, and he didn't ask them to do this particular task,
Particular
either
thing.
go down. And I said no. They court-martialed me. It was it was a minor thing. They took money.
Right.
Article
Took
15.
money.
Yes,
It was
Article
sort of like
15.
Article
Article
15.
Article 15,
Yes.
yeah, money
Took
and time. Yeah.
But
Rank sometimes.
that whole period in terms of the patriotism, I see that particularly today. I see that it's like a trap for us in terms of being of African descent. Whereas it gets us. I was watching something the other night, and it was mixed martial arts, right? And these the army were at an army base and blah blah blah. But they started chanting USA Today, and I saw these guys of color standing up, and I understand. Once you're a part of that organization, it's real easy to become indoctrinated and forget that this is you're a tool in a war machine. Because
Right. Okay.
this is a country that is about it's a warrior nation, and being that it's a warrior nation, they're always going to be looking for some place to start some combat or something, and it's they're always going to take the young and push them into this.
You know, I agree with you. I didn't see that kind of thing as a young soldier when I first started out, talking about being a STRAC troop. That's what we used to call it then. And I was that person, but I don't think I was the same way as for God and country. You know, as the brother said, you know, when you get in there, when you're in these situations, you make strong bonds and strong allegiances with people.
Right.
I've not been in a combat situation such as this brother was, but you still make those strong connections with your fellow soldiers. I served in South Korea for almost 2 years, and it was, for me, even though with the specter of possibly having to put on my gear and go to South Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia, didn't have to do it, but it was even in what they call a hardship tour, that part of the world, the hardship tour, I benefited immeasurably by being immersed in another culture, having to walk around and learn the language and intermingle with people from another country. I couldn't believe when I first landed that after all of this training that they give you in basic training and your advanced training, the first thing that happened when you get to your duty station over there is they give you, quote, a houseboy. Now I was young, but I said something is wrong with this picture here. They give you a houseboy, and this is a grown man with a family and children and all of that, and he is my houseboy. And something's wrong here. So I, right from then, I said, this is a problem here. First of all, you give me all this training and how to shine my brass and all of this,
exactly.
and then what? You have somebody else servicing me. Something's not right there. I had a disconnect with that straight off the bat.
Okay.
But having said that, being able to intermingle with this man and the others there, and then going out into the village and talking to people and doing what young men do in their 20s, I can't put a price on that, really.
There was one thing I was meaning to say about one of the negatives, and that's being away from your family. You know, we were
Yes.
traveling
That's
all
true.
the time. I mean, I've lost 2 relationships due to military service.
Okay.
Because everybody can't be the girlfriend of a soldier, or the boyfriend
Okay.
of a soldier,
Okay.
the husband
Right.
of a soldier. You know, because sometimes you're gone for a year, 2 years. I mean, I was in Iraq for 18 months straight, and my son was the only one that I could trust to handle my finances.
Wonderful.
Even, you know, I mean, and when the young lady that I was with before I left to go to Iraq, when I came back, I got rid of her. I cut the relationship off because I didn't know whether she was faithful or not. You know, these are some of the things when you're away from home. I mean, a lot of my friends were getting their finances destroyed by their loved ones, you know, while they were away, or coming home to someone else taking over their family. So that's definitely one of the most negatives there is, being away from your loved ones.
Okay.
You know.
And the maturity or
Yeah.
lack of
Yes.
maturity. Well, see, you went in as an older,
Yeah, when
not
I-
an
yeah.
older man,
Yeah.
but you know, you're
Yeah, when
30.
you're 30, yeah.
He was
it's-
older,
it's-
man.
Yeah, that's true. So
Yes,
30
I
is
saw
a,
things
is
a
a
lot
different,
different.
is a
Right.
different
Really
age
different.
than 20 and 21.
Or
You're
18
mature,
or 17.
You know, you're mature.
Yes, and I had
You-
kids doing everything. though.
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah,
even,
yeah,
I wasn't
right.
smoking cigarettes or
Right,
nothing. I wasn't
right.
doing nothing
Yeah,
but
yeah.
showing up.
Yeah.
Okay, you're listening to Mental Health for Better Living. I'm your host, Dr. Leon Dickerson. We're going to take a quick break. Please stay tuned. Okay, great. Okay, good.
Interesting.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Oh, what a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
Welcome back to Mental Health for Better Living. We have with us this morning, Mr. Henry Porcher, Mr. Reggie Mitchell, Mr. Anthony Albright-Utton, and Mr. Michael Haskins. And we're all talking about the service and our experiences in the military. Let me ask a question. Did anyone of you join the military willing to give your life for your country?
I didn't think about it at that time. I really didn't think about it. Even though the particular era that it was in, I didn't consider that I'd be doing that I would be putting my life at risk. I mean, I kind of knew it at the back of my mind that the potential was there, but I really didn't consider it because, in fact, I went in. I didn't want to go in to be in the infantry. I didn't want to be a paratrooper or anything like that. I wanted to go in for a specific school, for a specific educational experience. That's what I went there for. But I knew, at the end of the day, your MOS is what I don't know what they call it. Military police was 99 Bravo, but I don't know what it was for a soldier, infantryman.
It's a one something.
Yeah. So I mean, all of us, any of us, can be that designation. If
This may sound a little strange, but we all probably learned about Nathan Hell. Remember Nathan Hell?
Right.
Excuse me. He was the spy.
Make me want to holler. Is that Nathan Hale?
He was a spy in near the inception of our country, and he was captured and he was hung. And the last statements that Nathan Held said was, "I regret that I only have but one life to give for my country." And I think that's the measure of patriotism if I've ever heard it. Okay, But what I'm hearing now, the Army has become more almost commercial in a sense.
Business.
Business. While join and we'll educate you.
Educate you and pay you.
Exactly.
And if you die during the time, then fine.
Right.
Yeah, because you don't think. I mean, I had 1,000 people praying for me when I was overseas. Like I said, I was in the Army, so I can't not say that. Well, okay, this would be my day when I go out on the road because we were actually fighting people who were trying to kill us. We were trying to kill them because we were invading their country, of course.
Except for World War II. I mean, I don't know if we want to call it traditional warfare where everybody had uniforms. The Japanese had uniforms and the Germans had uniforms, and of course we had uniforms, and so we can recognize. But since Vietnam, you're fighting an enemy. Okay, that wasn't dressed for war, but yet we remain dressed for war. Yes. What does that bring up to you? The fact that we were visible, like in Afghanistan, we're fighting people who really can't see, that clearly, and even if we saw them, we really couldn't detect, who they were, who they are,
Intellectually, for me, it's everything has changed. From when I went in, there wasn't any war. Like I said, I went in 1960, and Korea was over. There was no war on the horizon. As I was about to be discharged, they were in Laos, and things were starting to heat up. But so then when Vietnam came, but what it is for me, there's the United States can't win a ground war because the American soldier is not willing to do what
somebody in Afghanistan, somebody in Laos.
That's right.
You are talking about people who are fighting for their neighborhoods, for their homes, and it's a different experience.
Different thing. So there's not going to be any R&R for the Iraqis, the Afghanistans. To people, so it's a different mindset, and so the country can't win a ground war, but yet they keep pushing people and
putting people on the ground
into boots on the ground. So what is that about? Is that I don't know. Sometimes is that for depopulation, or what is it that there's always this wars all over the planet?
Well, I've heard, I think we all may have heard that every 20 years America starts a war to get rid of
the economy.
Right. Okay. Exactly. We
Boost
have all
the
these
economy.
theories.
Boost the economy.
But one thing about American military, when I say we Americans, when we go to war planning to come home.
Yes.
We kiss our loved ones on the we plan to come back. What is it like to fight an enemy that's coming to die?
Well, I can say that firsthand. You got to be real cautious, but you can't be but so cautious because we're driving through these towns, in Baghdad and stuff like that, in these cities and these little cities. I mean, people are all over the place. And what we have to do, we have to clear an area because we can't let little kids run up on us, not even to our vehicles, because anybody could be strapped.
Okay.
So it's very difficult. Like I said, going out on the road every day, and we worked the night shift. We were military police. We worked the night tour. So there was hardly anything you could see. Tripwires everywhere. And you had teams that were supposed to go out there and recon and get this stuff out the way before you went out there, but it wasn't always so. They could hit you with a cell phone from a rooftop, stuff like that, press a button, and boom, I've seen that
So
a
the
thousand
anxiety,
times.
so the anxiety must really be
My
intense.
blood pressure went up so high. That's why I got high blood pressure now. You understand? That's why I can't sleep now. We didn't even get into the aspect of PTSD.
I hear you.
You know.
One of the first persons I had on the show, a female, her name is Stephanie Shannon, and she wrote a bestseller called Storm Within. And Sergeant Shannon, her story details continuous sexual molestation while stationed in Afghanistan. I think in Desert Storm. Like was doing the Desert Storm campaign. So let me ask you guys: did you witness any misogyny? Okay, which is the hatred of women. Okay, did you guys witness that while you were serving in the military?
Well, I'll tell you what I experienced being in South Korea and being very close to this base in the southern part of the country in Busan. That's the largest city in South Korea. We had a base, and there are some soldiers who, really cohabited with the females in that area. And some of them were actually married, or some of them they lived in a situation akin to marriage. And I would often go, when I was in the village, I would often hear abuse. It's more akin to domestic violence, I believe, than misogyny of the nature and order you're talking about. But I remember when I got in country, the very first night I'm in my duty station, and I got picked up at the gate to be brought in to the barracks. On the way to the barracks, I didn't know him well then. He turned out to be my buddy later on, stopped at a gate and picked up this woman. I'm telling you, I just got in the country. I don't know whatever from Shinola, you hear me? And they dropped me off. And then they went on, and a few days later I heard something about some abuse charges were being leveled. And I was that close to being involved in something, would have been very, very bad.
Just walking in.
Just
Just
getting in
walking
the
in.
Jeep.
Right.
It can happen. But I didn't witness any misogyny, but a lot of domestic abuse I did see.
But now with the service in itself, it fosters a loss of your humanity.
Oh my goodness! You're
you
so right. Look! How do
you
they
can't
take
keep your
soldiers
humanity.
that are 18 years
Impossible.
old or even older and turn them from somebody that's
else.
18
Right.
years old
To this discipline, to this well-rounded
just think
individual.
about the training that we underwent,
Right.
and remember the cadences that
Yes,
we used
absolutely.
to sing
Yes.
along, and all those things to dehumanize
Yes.
us, and then to marginalize women. I remember several songs that we used to sing, or cadences that were in marching.
Yeah,
that
Jody.
and about the abuse of women, or the disregard of women.
Yes.
It's built into that.
You can't keep your humanity.
I mean, it's
because
just like The Office,
it's-
by the water
it's-
cooler, you know?
Well, you know what? The Winter Soldier
Yes.
on now John Kerry, Senator
Senator
Kerry,
Kerry.
he's talking about beheadings, rapes, murders. Then and when they were playing it on the station, they were talking about they should play that. His when he was at the hearings, they should play that for him today, because now he's talking about bombing Iraq, Afghanistan. But I remember feeling a sense of being an outlaw because I was in the military.
Wow.
Yeah, just like an outlaw. I'm in the military. You know, and not thinking about, you know, there could be extremely dire consequences, but I can imagine being in out of the States in another country. That'd be a rogue.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of my comrades were. Well, actually the white boys were more like that than anybody else. They were running through these countries like as if they owned it. They would just abusing women left and right.
Yeah, you lose your humanity, man.
Yeah,
really bad.
In my case, during the time I was there, at least in Spain, I was always very cautious. I have 10 sisters.
Right.
So in the photo lab or wherever I worked, if you said something wrong to a woman, I would let you know. You know, that's not the way you talk to her or something like that. But what I will say is that I did trust the code of conduct, and I did witness how, at the end of the day, your superiors, they did hold up to the code of conduct, as far as even when, you know, the mascot, the Marine mascot, was injured by the person who was supposed to take him out and use the bathroom. They actually incarcerated this gentleman for harming.
I didn't get that. But
for harming a dog.
Wow.
But while I was there, I think that most of the sailors or most of the gentlemen that I worked with, as far as my character, they really didn't. They were careful about the way they spoke around women. But I think most men walked around on eggshells because we were counseled. And we were taught that we couldn't say certain things. And this is, I'm talking 1983 to 1990 when I went in. And the community I worked in was an intel community. It was aerial and photographer. So there were a lot of women. Two of my superiors, both lieutenants, were women. But when I got to the lab in Spain, there were probably 50%. And we had a good time, but I would say we made sure that the women that worked in the lab with us weren't treated any differently. In fact, you know, when you talked about things that you experienced, I did experience as a photographer. We had to I photographed a number of suicides, and for different reasons, and all of them were male, and some were for infidelity, some were for not being able to come out as homosexual,
right.
And some were just couldn't take it. But at one point there was a female who took her life, and I had to take my my co-worker or my other sailor. She was a female sailor, and I had to teach her how to photograph because she was a woman. So, and that was one of the instances. And me and the young lady, we developed a bond as far as she got to experience something that, you know, because it was a woman. But I would say, as far as I know it does exist. I wouldn't be here. I know because it exists. But in the lab where I worked, I was very conscious. I just didn't accept it. You know, as far as treating women differently or bad. You know?
I wonder, what does ownership have to do with our attitudes in the military? I don't feel, as an African American male, I don't feel ownership. I'm 67 years old, and I grew up in the South, where I actually experienced riding on the back of the bus. You know, I experienced gimbals. You know, the white water faucet versus the black water faucet, the Jim Crow, the whole restaurant thing. So I never had a sense of ownership. But I have noticed a lot of my white friends, even just by hanging out, you know, with them, their attitude is, no, come on, you know, like I would sort of stick back, then we'd walk into, let's say, a restaurant, okay, and they was, no, come on, let's go over and get this chair, and I was very hesitant, you know, and I'm wondering what is the contrast? What happens when if that's what we experience, and now we're in a war machine. That's just justified, you know, in many ways. I mean, we have to have, every country has to have a military. Let's face it, okay? But I wonder what the contrast is when you're over there and you know that, you know, your life is on the line, okay, and there's no sense of ownership. You know, there's no sense of my country. You know, I'm going to join the war. Why? Because they just bombed. On Sunday was the celebration of Pearl Harbor, and if you do your research, you'll find that a lot of men signed up.
My father re-enlisted in the National Guard, and my brother joined the because of the Pearl Harbor.
Okay, in other words, a sense of this patriotic sense of mind.
Well, I know I went over to overseas after 9/11. To say whether I was angry or duty or just because I was in and I knew I had to go. Things got way tense. Because I was a shop owner. Before 9/11, I owned a little gift shop right here on 116th Street.
Okay.
And when the World Trade Centers, happened, I knew that I would be going on a long, long journey with the military. That all kind of things would change. So while over there, like I said, we first got dropped off in Kuwait. And, you look around and you realize that it's not a movie. It's not a movie set. They're actually walking camels in the desert like we walk dogs. So you said, wow, where am I? I'm 44 years old at the time, 45 years old. I'm like, wow. It's unbelievable. So now I got to keep praying because I want to get out of here alive.
Okay.
So many soldiers getting killed. But
wonderful. Wonderful.
This,
During the break, Mr. Michael Haskins indicated that he may have to leave a little early. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to say, some parting words to us, whatever you have on your heart.
Well, it's just, I've wanted really to do this for some time. I'm not able to. I don't have the flexibility. I have tremendous flexibility at WBAI, but not necessarily to do this, to talk. And to be around these black men and talk about our veteran experiences, only in part because we have 55 minutes of programming, but I just so appreciate being here with you all, being able to talk and tell my story in part, and I thanks for the invitation to come in here and talk to you and. We have to do more of this.
Definitely.
We all have these stories to tell.
Definitely.
And we have to tell our young people about our experience.
Definitely. Definitely.
So thank you all so much.
Thank you, sir. Changing direction for a minute. Earlier this year, a scandal broke out concerning the VA hospitals across the country, where some of these facilities were concealing the wait time. In order to deliver services, and as a result of that, there were casualties. Veterans died as a result of that. What was your response, fellas, when y'all heard that?
For me, I was disappointed. I was upset when you hear about statistics about how many homeless veterans there are. It makes you upset. It's not fair. For you to sacrifice, and then you hear that there are so many, homeless veterans, or the fact that, they're not being cared for. But I will say that the adjustment, I did notice that there is adjustment. Yes, there was waits before, but now they've implemented more technology, so they've issued new ID cards, and when you come in, the people that are supposed to help you, they're on a clock now. So, once you swipe your card, printout comes out, and then they're more on point now, and they're more attentive to, at least from my experience, and I make sure I go to all my visits. But to me, they're on point now. But I will say, it hurts. You're disappointed to know that you make a sacrifice, and this country can't take care of you.
I was told by a friend of mine, and he said that if the VA hospitals were staffed by military people, people who have actually been over there would not be a waiting list at all. Which speaks to the value. Somehow we lose sense of how valuable our veterans are. Simply because we're not over there. We've never actually, served in the military. Can you speak on that?
I agree that that's no question. In fact, a couple of times they had a former veteran who was the head of the
Right.
VA. I don't know if that's still the case, but I come from a different experience. I've been out over 50 years now.
Okay.
And when I was in the service, I was in a missile outfit, and at that time, one of the missiles was the Nike Ajax, and it had a nuclear warhead. And no country has caught up in terms of armament with this country. So I'm always suspicious when there's always this, we got to fight someone, threatened by it. I don't believe it. So if they're lying about the invasions and the reason, the need for us to have all these protection, they don't care about veterans.
Okay.
They don't care about veterans, and they prove that every day. Like Anthony talked about, when you see on these guys, the homeless, the people on drugs, what they've sent these people into these kinds of situations. Even today, they're sending people into combat.
Right.
3-4 times. These people can't. I don't care how much therapy they get.
Right.
Those people are not going to be able to recover from the trauma, of being in those kinds of situations.
Right.
So why do they continue to do this?
Right, exactly. Okay, our time has come to an end. Thank you for listening to Mental Health for a Better Living. Today we had on with us Mr. Henry Porcher, Mr. Reggie Mitchell, Mr. Anthony Albrighton, and Mr. Michael Haskin, who joined us later on in the show. We want to thank you guys for really coming on and being with us this morning. And as you can see, as Mr. Haskin said before we left, we got to do this again. And we got it because I'm on from 9 to 10 on Mondays, and you guys have your own shows on. So I'm willing to go back and forth, and so we can really build this thing. Okay, so we can have like more of an awareness and a consciousness of who we are. I mean, you guys served for the. You can't get no better than that in terms of what you think about this country. You served this country. Okay, so on that note, we want to thank everybody, and we'll see you next Monday. My name is Dr. Leon Dickerson. My practice is right here in Harlem. You can locate me by calling my office at 212-289-6012. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Variedades latinas, música romántica. Escúchala y siente lo mismo que yo. Variedades latinas, música romántica. Escúchala y siente lo mismo que yo.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Estoy en todos los autobuses escolares, todos los patios de recreo y todas las aulas. Voy a la escuela con sus hijos. Decimos el juramento de la bandera juntos. Soy uno de cada 4 niños estadounidenses y paso hambre a diario. Mis maestros dicen que en este país podemos ser lo que deseamos cuando seamos grandes. Quiero ser alguien que no se vaya a dormir con hambre. Visite feedingamerica.org para /español hoy y busque su banco de alimentos local para saber cómo ayudar. Cada $1 que dona ayuda a ofrecer 7 comidas a niños que luchan silenciosamente con el hambre. Juntos alimentamos a nuestro país. Presentado por Feeding America y Ad Council.
Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más.
Harlem has its own radio station. WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más. Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más.
Rafa.
Dígame, Ventura.
Llama a los alumnos que va a empezar la lección.